We are pleased to celebrate 30 years since the Noyes Museum opened in 1983. The museum is located on the Edwin B. Forsyth National Wildlife Refuge, an idyllic setting near the ocean and bay. With 4 galleries that change quarterly throughout the year, there's always something new to discover. The museum was the vision of Fred and Ethel Noyes, who also created the town of historic Smithville and the Ram's Head Inn. Their passion for the arts and drive to preserve the culture of the region is why we're here today.
The reason I wrote this book, or even got the idea to write this book, Fred and Ethel Noyes of Smithville, New Jersey, I was at the Fred and Ethel's Lantern Light Tavern with my husband back in 1998. I went into the powder room, and when I came out, within inches of my face, there were several pictures of Ethel on the wall, and it struck me that she was an amazing woman. Her accomplishments, because of her ideas, there's a Smithville, there's a Ram's Head Inn, there's a Noyes Museum of Art, and we both couldn't think of anything that had been written about her. So Ethel was truly my inspiration, but of course I learned before long that she couldn't have done what she did without Fred standing beside her all the way.
When we took over, we decided we want to honor Fred and Ethel because it's amazing what they have done here, what they did here. Started with an antique shop. It took a while to get here in those days because Route 9 was hardly paved, and people were hungry. So they started making sandwiches and selling sandwiches to the people that came here. And the next thing you know, they decided, let's go turn this into a restaurant, and we'll get another building and put our antiques in the other building, which they did. And so we were so impressed with their story, we decided to name the Lantern Light Tavern Fred and Ethel's Lantern Light Tavern.
My first connection with the museum would definitely be very shortly after it opened, and we learned that a woodcarver who we admired very much, Gary Giberson, would be giving live demonstrations here several times a week. So we came over with our children and very much enjoyed that, and then of course walking around the rest of this beautiful museum.
When the historic village of Smithville opened up, I then had a job as a spinner and weaver. There was this wood carver there who was amazing, this Gary Giberson. The artwork that he's done is just incredible. And he started out carving ducks to hunt over, and then Fred helped him make them into more of an art form. And Ethel, I mean, she purchased everything he made at the first show he did.
This first show, opened the door, introduced me to Ethel Noyes. Having nothing to sell at this show, all I could do was stand in front of my carvings and tell stories. And I had people 3 and 4 deep. I see Fred and Ethel, you know, and she's poking him in the arm, you know, listen to this. I left my profession as a lineman to become a full-time artist. And I owe this all to Fred and Ethel Noyes.
In 1978, Fred and Ethel approached us, Gary and I. We had just recently gotten married, and they said, we want to build a decoy museum and we want you to help us build it.
And it was going to be a very, very small little decoy museum in a building here in Port Republic.
So there was actually a museum designed, and they came to the City Council in Port Republic to get a zoning variance to have the museum there. The town didn't want the museum. The town is very small, it's very quiet. They were afraid of having a commercial enterprise there. The minute he heard that there was negative feedback from the townspeople, he and his attorney and the architect stepped outside. They said, just a minute, we want to converse. They came back in and he said, Fred has decided to withdraw his application. He doesn't want there to be any problem in this town. So then he went on to look at other opportunities, and when he found this particular site, apparently he knocked on the door of the owner of the property and said, I want to buy this, when can my attorney meet your attorney? And that sounds like Fred to me.
So Nikki and I were called to a meeting. We're going to have a meeting at the Ram's Head.
And then that night, Fred called and said, Ethel's not feeling well. So why don't you just come to dinner on us and we'll talk later about the museum. We said, no, we'll wait.
It was unbelievable. Somehow or other, I got behind them in their two-tone blue Cadillac. And I never saw Fred and Ethel sit so close together. And he had his arm around her. And that's the last time I saw her alive. because she passed away on Super Bowl Sunday 13. And I remember hearing it on the news, you know, restaurateur Ethel Noyes dies of a massive heart attack. And I walked out the door and went out and walked in the woods and cried to the pine trees because a part of me had disappeared.
And at the funeral, Fred said, we're going to still build this museum, and now we have to build it better than ever because it's in memory of Ethel. And we said, okay, we're on board.
I didn't actually know the extent of Fred's art and what a serious artist he was. He got a very good foundation in art because he studied at the Academy of Arts and at the Barnes Institute in Philadelphia and got the very traditional art education. But before long, he wanted to branch. He had ideas that didn't fit in with the concept at the Academy of Arts. And I think that he developed this, and obviously he painted right up to the end what his personality was, which was very bright, very much related to nature. He did a lot of fish, which he loved to fish, and the fish was also a very spiritual symbol for Fred. And he would paint what he saw out his window, but his interpretation, which was as if you took a slice through from the sky right down through the water, and you would see the different colors in the sky. You would see the sun, you would see the sailboats on the creek, you would see swans, egrets, and then you would see even what's under the water, the fish.
It was such a pleasure to work with and for another artist. I learned so much about art from Fred, composition and color and use of composition and color. Like I said in the decoy carvings, the reverse curves and everything. And Fred was so unique. I'm standing over his shoulder watching him paint Busy River. And I said to him over his shoulder, "You sly old fox, you've got my eye moving in the Z, how a photograph or a picture or a composition should be. I've never seen it so strong by any artist." And he said, "You got it, boy. You got it. You understand. You understand." And he literally got up from the table and gave me a great big hug.
I have a couple of pieces of Fred's stuff. I have one when he was a student, which is a pencil sketch of a ballerina. And it's really fascinating to see where he came from as a young student and where he was when he died. And you can see the progression in the art.
Oh, I loved his artwork. It was very interesting how he went about it. He said to us, "Now, what's more interesting, this or this?" And he would look at his paintings like that one line would lead to another, would lead to another, would lead to another. And it was very, very colorful. His older paintings in the late 30s and early 40s were kind of subdued colors, kind of Cézanne-esque kind of, but his later paintings in life, he did such beautiful colors and so many whimsical things. At the house, every day, he would paint at least 2 hours a day. And when we got there at 8 o'clock every morning, he had already been painting for an hour or two in the morning because he felt like the more you do it, the better you get. And here he was in his 70s and still thinking, you know, I still need to get better, which is a good inspiration. We're never done.
I think Fred was the visionary when it comes to the museum, and I think from what I've read and what I've heard, Fred had a real serious devotion to the museum. And you know, I'm glad to see that we are continuing down that path that he put the museum on.
Fred was such a supporter of fellow artists. He loved to help artists that were just starting out and struggling. For example, Tony Rudisill, who is now quite recognized, he bought a lot of Tony's work, helped him feed himself by buying paintings every week. Tony would come in and sell a painting to Fred. And then Fred got an exhibition for him at the Newman Galleries in Philadelphia, so that he was able to sell his art to a wider market. He also supported Paul Stankard way back before anybody really knew who Paul Stankard was. So I think Fred would be very excited to see the artists that are now being exhibited at the museum, the up and coming, the people who are trying something new, because that's what he was. He was an artist who wanted to try something new, and he wanted to help other artists.
You know, so they were very much lovers of the arts and promoters of the arts, and it was very important to them, and local people. It was local people who had all this talent that would probably never go to Philadelphia and never go to New York, but they had the opportunity to be artists here in South Jersey. And so I told my husband, we need to do something that will give back. We run a business here called Swan Bay Folk Art Center. We teach quilting, doll making, we have sheep, we do spinning, all sorts of things like that. Anything that's a historical craft that could help you build your own history, that's what we do here.
I know they would be totally pleased with the way this museum has grown and has reached out to the community and is providing so much opportunity for so many people to learn and share art.
It's a wonderful facility. I am so proud of the staff and the people there. I think the opening events that they have 3-4 times a year, they are special. You know, people get a chance to meet the artist and discuss his work with them at the reception. It brings out a lot of people. It gives us an opportunity to introduce the museum to new people. And we're really pleased that now we're involved with Stockton because the museum's going to survive. It's going to be there forever.
I think it's a great connection. Ethel got an honorary degree from Stockton, and Fred had gone to art school in Philadelphia. I mean, they were both very much promoters of the education. They had a foundation where they gave scholarships, so they were very, very much in favor of promoting education and art and artists.
I want the Noyes Museum to grow. I want people to understand, read Judy's book, know the Noyeses, visit the Noyes Museum often because the shows are showcasing things that we all have to know to love and appreciate.
With more locations, in addition to this beautiful museum in Galloway Township, we're able to offer more for our donors and members, families, and all art enthusiasts. Providing educational art experiences for the people of South Jersey was important to Fred and Ethel Noyes. And I bet if they were here with us today, they'd be very proud.